grace given to St. Francis could have gone either way. It could have been a revolution before the time, such as we had from 1517 onwards in Germany, but it was contained. Pope Innocent had a vision, it would seem, indicating that this man who was about to come to him had to be taken seriously. St. Francis himself had a vision with regard to building up what he thought to be the local church. Santa Maria degli Angeli there, near Assisi, has inside the original church that he rebuilt, a church within a church. But it did have the effect of rebuilding the church. It was a huge movement in the heart of the Middle Ages, still with us to this day. Many are the ramifications, even as far as the Holy Land. He was not afraid to face even actually the Sultan himself, so great was his missionary zeal. And to this day, the Franciscans, his children, have the care, the custody of the holy places. Such was his devotion to the Incarnation. Even the Angelus that we have in our Catholic lands 3 times a day comes from his devotion to the Incarnation and the need to have not less but more than the Islamic bloc with regard to the punctuation of time, counterbalancing the denial of the Incarnation by their 5-fold prayer. When Muezzin calls, what are they saying? Well, they're not glorifying the Incarnation, certainly, but we are. And we need to do well that devotion. We need to punctuate time with the Angelus. It's good to have it programmed on our mobile phone. There are ways and means of punctuating time. And the Irish way of doing it with the kneeling at the clause, and the Word was made flesh and dwelt amongst us, is beautiful. For with our body we honour the body, the incarnate Son. St. Francis was an evangelical before the time. Indeed, evangelicals do look to him, even now, as someone who was close to Christ, the heart closest to Christ's. As an evangelical, I was deeply moved by his example. Even as a child, I was able to visit his tomb at Assisi, and my mother said to me in Welsh it was just as he would have wished it, simple. That bottom part of the basilica, it's simple. The body of the Poverello is there. Well, this movement was powerful, and it still draws. Indeed, in school days it was what I actually wanted to embrace, but they kept putting me off. I didn't insist. Went then towards the monastic thing, which was hugely influenced by the fact that my parish actually turned out to be a monastic parish, run by the Benedictines. But the thrust was still there, and indeed in student days much later on, a classmate was entering the Franciscans, the Capuchins, and he wanted me to come with him. Sometimes I wish I'd listened to him. He's still there. He persevered. And he was attracted, a convert likewise, to the Catholic faith by the ideal of the gospel lived literally, providence, believed in, freedom to fly, without the structure of enclosure, for enclosure was to be found in the heart of Christ. And that element of preaching with all one's being. Indeed, the Franciscans to this day have that advantage of being the one order that tends still to wear the habit all the time. Why not? Why be ashamed? It's a beautiful witness. The old saying holds well, attributed to St. Francis himself: preach, and if necessary, use words. Your actions speak so loudly that I can't hear what your words are saying, says the old adage. And it is a beautiful testimony to preach with warmth and charity. Warmth and charity indeed towards the whole universe, and creation appreciated in its beauty, animals loved. And there is rapport, isn't there, between a soul in a state of grace and warmth and charity, between that soul and children, between that soul even and animals. That goes back to the Desert Fathers, where the piece of Eden was retrieved, and the Desert Fathers knew something about it. We hear stories of the Desert Fathers being, as it were, close to lions, sleeping close to them. And there's a beautiful story actually about a lion who was in difficulty in the desert, howling with pain, and the Desert Fathers saw that he had a thorn in his paw, so he pulled it out. And then it was given, unfortunately, to that poor martyr to be placed in the den of the lions to be eaten by them, and that lion recognized him, came up to him and licked him and would not eat him up. There is, even now, if one looks carefully, a rapport between innocent children and animals quite often. The animals seem to pick things up. Let us find something of the simplicity of the gospel. After all, it is not this person or that person that will follow us, but Jesus Christ. And the gospel is in precisely pages of scripture. We don't need to add to it or take away from it, but to follow it literally. And St. Francis understood that. Alas, what happened in the 1500s was very different. Martin Luther did have lights initially and saw the need for purification. But what happened? He became independent. Popularity can lead to a certain awareness of one's role, and one can have a following personally. What happened? Independence of mind, self-sufficiency. I just conclude with this. It is well known that somebody who was beatified not long ago by Pope Benedict, when he was still Pope, was at the birthplace of Martin Luther, without knowing what it was, what was the significance. But there was a huge event taking place, in which the Kaiser himself was involved. We were going to celebrate the birthday of that local great man, Martin Luther, there where he was born. And she wanted simply to find a church where she could adore the Lord, present in the Blessed Sacrament. The church that she found at dusk was actually closed, so she knelt at the porch and adored what she thought was there inside. What was her surprise when her guardian angel gave her this message. He wanted her to see where Martin Luther had finished, and she was shown his place of torment deep down in hell, and she was given to understand what had led him there. Pride. And she was henceforth very, very severe on this one in her nuns when she was forming them. It was Sister Maria Serafina Micheli, who had died in 1911, foundress of the Sisters of the Angels. The angels would have reform, but they would have it under God and not without him.